Hey, everybody, you're listening and watching the Comic Book Bears podcast. I'm Bill Zanowitz,
I'm Brian Pittard.
I'm Steve Morey.
And I'm Caleb Alexander McKenzie.
and we are back with you with one of our, as we have dubbed them, Quarantina episodes. The first episode that probably could be dubbed Quarantina, though, was one that Steve and I did just before stay-at-home really took place. And because of the circumstances and because of so many people not being able to get out to comic shops or financial reasons, unfortunately, with the economic landscape as it is right now, we did an episode where all of the books that we spotlighted were free. And we decided to do that again, but this time with Brian and Caleb. So we're going to be talking about that, but also a couple of other things before we get into that. There's always a bit of a preamble. We are recording. So we are recording this on the 28th. Oh God, we were just talking about the days blurring together. So we're recording this on May 28th, and it was just this week that we had the first Marvel comics come out since Diamond shut down, and more comic book stores are opening, hopefully adhering to certain health practices. So I guess you're shaking something there.
Show off.
So for those of you guys who have been able to get to comic shops, because for me, it probably won't be till July. What's that been like, and what have you picked up?
So it's been kind of trickling down. So our comic shop, I live in a state. I live in Arkansas, so our state never actually shut down. So our comic shop was able to remain open, but they weren't getting new stuff. But they were still one of Diamond's warehouses was still open, so they're able to get some back issues and things. And so there's still been an influx of stuff that's new to me to read. But there really was a different, and I'm only going in for like 15 or 20 minutes at a time, right? Like I'm not staying there long at all, but there was a different vibe this week. There was very much an air of normalcy. I could tell from my friend Matt, who owns the comic shop, that it was, he was taking a deep breath. Like it felt regular for him. So they're starting to see a way out. And it was nice. There's a lot of cancellations and stuff, and there's a lot of stuff that we thought were going to come out but haven't yet. But what little bit we are getting, it is starting to get back into the flow. I think I picked up 6 books this week. I mean, normally I come home with around 12 a week, but so it's still about half of what I usually would. But still, it's it's fun to get those new books again.
Well, don't just tell us you got new books. Show us what you got.
Oh, okay. Well, I was showing you the Avengers. This is the the glare.
Okay.
So I picked up some Avengers. A series that I was absolutely loving before the fall. Lois Lane, the newest issue of that came out. I feel like I'm Bill Jr. I'm just doing DC books.
That's
Hawkman.
that's just fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Wonder
Woman. And then a series that I haven't read this yet, but I'm honestly thinking about dropping because I'm not digging the second part of the series as much as I adored the first. But Green Lantern season 2, just not feeling the way I felt the first part of it. So
that's so funny because I'm the complete opposite.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I'm the complete opposite.
Did we talk about this? I feel like we talked about this. The season, or whatever they're calling the second volume.
Yeah.
It's more like what Morrison pitched when he took the book over than the first series was, which I loved all of it, and I am enjoying the second season about the same. But if anything, I kind of agree with is it Caleb? Maybe it doesn't have that weirdness that Morrison. I mean, it does, but like the dark, is it Dark Stars, Black Stars?
Yeah,
those Dark Stars.
So it doesn't have that drive, which was sort of a nice propellant for that first series. But yeah, I haven't picked up the newest issue. The last one I saw is the weird bugs that they thought were aliens, but they're actually old creatures on Earth that were like taking over. And Hal was in prison. Does that ring a bell? Yeah, like that was like. I love the sexual though. I like the stuff with like Hal being a player, and then the chick knows it and is like teasing him about it. Like all of that was fantastic. But I also got books. I am not going to a comic shop right now because, again, we're locked down as well. So, yeah, no. But I don't have a store up here either. So I picked up Avengers, the beginning of the new Moon Knight arc, which, oh my God, it's like pretty epic. And I haven't been keeping up with Avengers. I got to go back and fill in the gaps since the, what was the Thor event? War of the Realms. I think I stopped around that point, and then I got to go back. But yeah, this is crazy. Like the shit they're doing with Moon Knight, Jason Aaron is doing some major upgrades, let's just say, to Mr. Spectre and all of his friends.
Cool. And you had Marauders there too?
Yeah, Marauders is good. I mean, we talked a little bit about it on the show, I think, so it's not too big of a spoiler, I think, if you're reading it, to know that Kitty Pryde is dead. But what's fascinating is, and yes, of course they're gonna bring her back. Yeah, right. They're gonna bring her back. Like, of course, that's like obviously. But
she's gone for good.
What I love is they're not doing it like right away. Like when they killed Professor X off in X-Force, it was like the next issue he's back.
Yeah, he's fine.
But with Kitty, it's different, and it's actually kind of nice because you really want her to come back. I mean, she is one of my favorite X-Men, and the fact that she's dead, is and killed by Sebastian Shaw is like, fuck you, it's horrible. But like that is a nice subtext to what is also going on, which is batshit as well. So anyway, great stuff.
Yeah.
How about you, Steve?
Well, I did go back to the store just this past Saturday. No, was this past Saturday? I think, yeah, it was past Saturday. And I picked up some stuff that was new to me that I wasn't expecting. So, like, just the few things that came onto the shelf. Ludocrats #1 was one of them. Yeah, I see the King of Nowhere #2. Ludocrats #1 I picked up. I don't have it right in front of me, but oh my God, that is just bizarre and ridiculous and crazy. It's like, speaking of Morrison, it's like Vertigo era Morrison, just off the wall, bizarro, funny. The art is crazy, and it doesn't make much sense, but it doesn't have to because it's just cool. And I've also been able to read the entirety of Andrew MacLean's Headlopper in trades. I picked those up. All 3 volumes that are available now, and love it. Love every second of it. The art's just fun. The story's great. But when you're not seeing a lot of new stuff on the shelf that's drawing your attention, sometimes it allows your eye to drift a bit more and start looking at things that may have been recommended previously, or things that maybe you weren't really sure about and want to give a try. Headlopper is definitely one of them. And
I don't have a comic store to go to. The one that's sort of my LCS, which I just had them pull Saga. Like, seriously, that's what my pull list was down to, was Saga. They are doing some kind of curbside for their regular subscribers, but without Saga, I don't have anything to pick up. I'm certain as the weeks go on that the non-essential shops here in New Jersey will enter different phases of the reopening, and we'll get something else. But that doesn't mean I didn't get a new physical comic. That's right. World of Archie Jumbo Comics Digest number 99.
Ooh.
These are the lengths I have to go to get a new physical book in my hand. I have to get Archie Digests, but it gives me some sense of normalcy. And it's like, Jesus, how many pages?
Well,
128 or something. Yeah. So,
and of course, Walmart's got some, those DC giants that are there.
Yeah, I did get the last batch, which actually have not been solicited, apart from the Teen Titans Go Superhero Girls.
Wow.
I don't think those have been solicited. At the very least, the Batman Giant, which there is some buzz about because it's a new Joker origin.
Yeah.
That has not been solicited by DC through Diamond yet. So,
and it's too bad there's no other new comics available at Walmart. Nothing, absolutely nothing.
No.
Just those DC Giants. It's pretty shocking.
Should we talk about them or not? I don't know. I don't know where that should go.
I don't
Okay.
so.
All right. Well, we'll just leave off there. All right. So, was there any news? I know last week we had so much with Batwoman and the Snyder Cut and everything. We did have HBO Max premiere this week.
We did.
Steve, you have it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I am one of the lucky few million people that have some kind of AT&T product that allows for, or that includes a free subscription to HBO Max. Unfortunately, like Disney Plus, HBO Max had a kind of rocky rollout for a lot of new subscribers and subscribers that should have been getting it free. I know myself, I'm an AT&T 1000 person, and a
Is
lot
that
of
your like home cable package?
it's the internet
Internet
package for the
package, yeah.
fiber. It's their fiber package. And one thing that I noticed a lot on Reddit and then on the forums with AT&T is that people who had that internet package were having the most trouble in signing in. But it finally worked today for me. It's pretty good. I do have some of those criticisms that other people have had when looking at some of the content and how it's organized. If people were worried about DCU being irrelevant now that HBO Max was around, I've been to the DC Hub. No, the DC Hub for HBO Max is very, very limited. It has a few movies. It has the 4 original Batman movies, from the Burton Batman up to Batman and Robin. It does not have any of the Nolan Batman films. It's missing a lot of the it doesn't have Man of Steel. Like there's a lot of things. The animated series, it doesn't have a ton of those. It's very limited. Now the one thing that it does have that will be new coming up is, of course, the new season of Doom Patrol, but that's also going to be airing at the same time on DCU. So right now, if you were a DC person and you wanted to get HBO Max because of DC stuff, stick with DCU.
Yeah.
But because it is HBO Max, it does have one DC property that is not going to be on DCU, and that is the Watchmen TV series. So if you haven't checked it out, then this is the place where you'd be seeing it, HBO streaming. So
there seems to be a lot of alignment with this and Hulu in some of the offers, and I'm wondering if that's just something that was an agreement that was in place prior to the Disney deals, because that's Disney shaking hands with Warner Brothers, and you don't expect to see that.
Well,
but I've gotten offers left and right as a Hulu subscriber. And I think you can even though like of all of the streaming services, I think Hulu was the worst to navigate. I can't stand their setup. But it's almost like almost every click there's like, and you can get this now on HBO Max.
You say that? Do you do Amazon Prime for video?
Sporadically.
That's the way I feel about Amazon Prime. When I try to go look, it's like nails on a chalkboard.
Yeah. I think with Amazon, you really have to know what you're looking for,
right?
Going in,
and as long as you're looking for Mythica, I'm sure you'll find it.
Yeah, I have to say of the streaming services, in terms of being fairly easy to navigate and having searches where you actually hit your search term, like no lie, I have put Batman in Netflix and not gotten Batman films, even though there are Batman films on. Like no lie, that has happened. One of the free services, Tubi, is really good interface.
Yeah.
Been happy with that.
It may not be as easy to navigate as an interface if you're looking for on demand, but we've just started playing around with Pluto TV, and it is free TV, so there's of course commercials and ads. It's ad supported, but it's exactly like navigating a cable subscription or a satellite subscription. There's just channel after channel and blocks worth of themed stuff. Plus they have full binge channels where they take a single show and will just show every single episode. There's an Addams Family channel. You can watch every episode of Addams Family in order.
I never in my life thought there would be a one day at a time channel.
Yeah, there is.
And there is.
There's also an MST3K channel.
Well, that's the thing.
Rifftrax
That's the
channel.
thing is that's what I put on Rifftrax.
Oh yeah.
If I just need to have something on in the background, because I've had this like quasi discussion / fight with Chris Cummins about the difference between Joel and Mike people, and I'm totally a Mike person.
Oh, me too.
Yeah.
And it's so bad because Joel is amazing, and I got to see them live when they did the tour, and he was still really funny and everything, but I totally 100% think Mike is funnier, more endearing, more engaging, all across the board.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that group of three people,
Kevin, Mike, and oh god, the new crow.
Yeah.
I love his
Bill.
Bill.
Yeah.
Yes.
I just think their chemistry together is much more appealing. I feel like the Joel group, they tend to try to one up each other a little bit, and plus there's just a far bigger stoner vibe with the original group than I ever felt with the latter group.
Man, Joel is so baked. I mean, if he doesn't do drugs, I apologize, but
it's Minnesota. They don't do that kind of thing up there.
Can I ruin Mike for you a little bit? Can I just?
Yeah, sure. I know he's very conservative, or was prior to Trump.
Well, that's the question, and I have not kept up because I had to. Yeah. I was following on Twitter, and I was like, "Oh gosh, this is tough." But maybe because reasons he's come around. I don't know, but that took him down just a small amount. But I have his books. I have like a bunch of his stuff. Yeah, he's so funny.
Mike,
and yet Kevin is the complete opposite of that.
Oh,
if you follow
and
him.
Bill. And Bill, both of them.
Oh yeah, Bill. Yeah.
But I mean, that's to their credit. Like their chemistry is, I think, really what's undeniable. Which is why Rifftrax has not only like kind of succeeded beyond some extent, but not quite culturally as Mystery Science Theater, but as a business. I think that's why they work. They found a better model that's still very engaging. They can do movies that are licensed without having to worry, about that. And it's good. But then again, it's not Mystery Science Theater, so it's.
Well, the other group, I guess the older group, so you have Joel, Mary Jo Pehl,
well, Mary Jo has been a part of Rifftrax. So
she has.
And
also...
Mike's wife. Forgot her name, but
Bridget.
She's also Bridget.
Yeah, Bridget. The one thing that the other group went and did is they did something very similar to Rifftrax. They did Cinematic Titanic, and they were touring around the country, doing these amazing productions and stage shows where they were doing the exact same thing as Rifftrax and MST3K. But that project ended several years back.
Oh, it didn't last. It didn't last more than like a year or two, I think, at the most.
Yeah, it was only a couple of years, but it was it was like big shows. Whereas Rifftrax, I guess they had their deal with
the movie theater streaming
events.
Fathom
events, and so that's how I've seen most Rifftrax that have gone through. And Brian, I am with you on Mike. For one thing that you didn't mention, Mike shirtless is very common in his episodes. In fact, I was watching one on Pluto TV today. It was the Merlin's Marvelous Shop of Wonder or whatever bullshit it was, and Tom Servo casts a magic spell that turns Mike into a baby version of himself, where he's just shirtless, wearing a very low cut diaper thing. And man, that man was furry. I did not realize
he's very furry. He's a nice otter
for a blonde dude,
and he got a little hefty after.
He got a little chunky there.
Nothing wrong with that. So the other
favorite.
Thing, sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say the new Mystery Science Theater that they have done on Netflix, by also comparison, because it's Joel and a couple of the newer people, and in fact, the live show they brought in even different other people because they couldn't get Jonah Ray or whatever.
Yeah.
But the humor, it's not bad, but like again, Mike and Bill and Kevin, their writing is just so sharp comparatively. Like it's just it's the best. It's the best version of all of them. And I think you're right, Steve. Their distribution model is just far more successful.
So I've got a question for you since we're talking about this. I'm a Rifftrax and MST3K newbie. I've never tapped into it. This has never been something that's really caught my attention. If somebody who is listening to this episode, or who's just like me, that it's never been, they've never gravitated to it, where do you start? Where's the best place to start at with that stuff?
Get the book.
You got to get the book.
This
is only available to the club members or whatever at the time.
My copy somewhere. Where's my copy?
No, I can't speak to this because I have most of them recorded on VHS and then I ripped them. But they have put out, was it Shout Factory, I think?
Yeah, and Rhino. Both Rhino and Shout Factory.
But Shout Factory currently has the license, and if you get one of the Shout Factory apps or one of the feeder apps where Shout Factory feeds into, like Tubi, like we mentioned, or Pluto, you get a hell of a ton of free content.
Yeah, they
a lot of free stuff.
They're also available commercial free because with Tubi and Pluto you are going to get some ads, but or the Shout Factory app, but you will get ad free. They have some of them on Netflix. Oh, there we go.
There you go.
Yeah, you disappeared briefly.
Now we can't hear you.
And now you're
your microphone.
Just had a big lightning boom and the power flicked off for a second.
Oh, wow! And it flicked right back on for you.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
But yeah, I was just gonna say, Amazon Prime Video does have some episodes, and Netflix, of course, they have the new series, but they do still have some of the classic episodes available as well. Yeah. My personal favorite, I know. Oh, you've got Manos, the Hands of Fate. My personal favorite, number one episode of MST3K. It is a Mike episode, and it is Operation 0007. Which stars Neil Connery, Sean Connery's brother, who cannot act and is not an actor, and also several original Thunderball and Dr. No cast members. Yeah. So the original Miss Moneypenny is in there. The original, I think the original M is in there as well as
I can't remember, but just plain and simple, it is Bondsploitation.
Yeah, it is
delightfully so.
Yeah. But one of the funniest episodes overall, and then my favorite short, because everyone's got a favorite short, is Young Man's Fancy, where it's about how wonderful electricity is in the late 50s. That just is absolutely the most bizarre short this side of Coily, the spring fairy. Anyway,
if you want also, like, so Mr. Time's Career is great, obviously we recommend it, but if you want something that's a little more modern or updated, doesn't quite get as I don't know, it's not just the movie being played, but it's like a sort of the same analysis. Red Letter Media does this Best of the Worst show. If you've not checked their stuff out on YouTube, go look up Best of the Worst. They all watch these horrible B movies, some of which are amazing in their own rights, some of which Mystery Science Theater and Rifftrax have done, but then they do their own insightful commentary, like in little fits and starts, and then they analyze the movie from a filmmaker's perspective. And so it's like you get the film nerd geekery, you get the process talk, and then you get the good riffs. So, like, I love their stuff. It's all up on YouTube. And they don't show the whole movie, so you don't have to sit through. If you don't want to sit through the whole movie, I think that's really the advantage, at least, of their stuff. But it's in the same vein. It's really great.
Okay, I'll have to check that out. So for my recommendations, it's also a Mike episode, and it's a Touch of Satan. Which is worth it just for Kevin Murphy singing the theme song. Touch of Satan in your heart. And for a short, mine would be The Chicken of Tomorrow.
Oh, yes.
Yes, that would be my short. And also, Caleb, this one isn't as easy to find, but there is a bloopers reel called Poopy. And if you ever can find that, because that one they really got like in trouble with rights or something on that one. So that hasn't been as easily distributed as some of the others. But if you can come across that, I mean, I know there were VHS copies of Poopy, but I'm not sure if it did make DVD, it probably might be a bonus.
Yeah, like
but I know for a long time it was unavailable. It was as unavailable as the feature film.
Yeah.
If you go on the internet and you look up MST3K archive, there were several projects for a while where they were basically having people rip their VHS to digital and post them, and it looks like they're still out there. You might, some of them obviously because of rights or whatever issues are gone, but you can also, like I said, easily kind of find these online throughout. So
in college I was, and actually right before college too, I was a big contributor / user of the MST3K DAP. Back in the days of eDonkey, before BitTorrent and all that stuff.
Nerd.
But I actually had every single episode of MST3K all the way through the sci-fi years. So
the sci-fi years are fantastic. The
some
sketches
some of them.
Oh yeah, the movies were solid most of the time. The sketches were actually kind of elevated because I think sci-fi gave them a little bigger budget, and they did recurring characters like Observer and Bobo and
Observer, who is
Kevin.
Bill,
and then Bill.
Bill.
Yeah, Bill's Observer. Bobo is Kevin.
Bobo's Kevin.
And then Mary Jo was Forrester's
Dr.
mom.
Forrester or
Pearl.
Pearl.
Now you're talking about the skits. I just remember like another great Mike shirtless moment was when he was Michael Flatley.
Oh yeah,
doing
the Lord of the Dance.
Burned into my retinas. Oh my god.
Oof.
So Caleb, you got your homework. You got to go find it. Pick your own. Don't let us.
Yeah.
Manos Hands of Fate would be mine because it's just so iconic.
Yeah. Also with Manos, keep in mind there is the original MST3K, but there also is a Rifftrax.
And the Rifftrax is actually pretty solid. Like I don't know which I prefer more.
Yeah. It's something to check out. Some of the movies though, just as a warning, if you don't love MST3K, some of them are awful to get through. Some of the episodes you're just sort of like, when's the commercial break? But not everything can be a gem. So it's.
Have you ever watched a movie after you've seen it on MST3K?
Before. I've seen movies before.
Yeah, but I've done it after. It's especially the who was the fake Tom Corbett, Rocky Jones Space Hero, the Rocky Jones movies.
It's Rocky.
Oh, those are rough, man.
My favorite that I saw before MST3K did it, and then when MST3K did it, I was like, holy shit. Actually, there are two. One of them is Giant Spider Invasion. That had the giant tarantula that was frozen underground. I had seen that in Saturday Matinee when I was 7 years old on Channel 17. And then the second one was Alien from LA, starring a young Kathy Ireland.
Okay.
As Wanda Sack-Newsom.
The two that I definitely saw were Laser Blast and the original. Oh God, why am I Gamera? The original Gamera. Yeah, those two I definitely saw. Prior
Outlaw from Gore, I think I've seen as well.
Yeah.
That's terrible.
Wow, it was like a half-hour content there.
MST3K, it's cool. You should check it out.
So was there any other news though? I mean, I know we had FlameCon's cancellation, which was pretty much expected. Still haven't heard on New York yet.
Well, New York's in October.
It's in early October, but it's not so much the event, but the crowd.
Yeah,
I think is the issue. I think you could have a socially distanced convention. I just don't think New York's the one to make that.
God, no, not at all.
Yeah.
Well, is the Javits Center still being used for a hospital?
No, they've moved that out.
Have they?
But,
okay.
But also, there's nothing booked there like right now till New York Comic Con.
Yeah.
So I can't see them doing. And also, plus, when you think of the, companies themselves like DC and IDW have announced that their staffers are going to be home until 2021. The industry component itself,
well,
doesn't make a lot of sense to throw something that no one's going to that the talent's not going to come to.
Well, the other big one that hasn't been announced, I don't think, is Dragon Con. I mean, I think it goes without saying that that'd be canceled
I
because
think that has been.
Has it been?
That's another one that, good God, no, don't do it. That's a
But it
petri
is
dish.
Atlanta. I think that's the thing that's kind of difficult about it is that it's in Atlanta, and Georgia has fully thrown open the doors. So we'll see what it looks like at the end of August. If it's just if it's The Walking Dead as of August.
We had a, by the way, I just want to throw this in there. We had a chat interaction, which has not been as common maybe as of late, but I want to throw this in there because it's relevant. Steve Scott asked about Christian Cooper, who I believe is the editor at Marvel that had the incident with Karen in the Central Park. Is that right?
Yes, Karen, whose real name is Amy Cooper, no relation.
She's Karen.
Yeah, that was a big thing this week. Karen, she was a Karen.
So the question was, though, are we familiar with the work Christian Cooper did? I was not familiar with his queer Star Trek character at all. I was kind of surprised that was a thing.
Yeah, I always thought the first queer Star Trek character was the one in the paperbacks that Andy Mangels co-created.
Oh yes, forgot about that.
In comics for sure was the one that Christian.
But apparently this predated it by a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I am more familiar with Omni, which his sister actually is writing. I think it's Melody Cooper is working on Omni right now for Humanoids. But I wasn't as familiar with his work as much. But then again, I haven't been reading as much Marvel. So
but this goes back some time. This isn't current.
So evidently, I mean, this is just a quick wiki, right? He did a lot of work with Marvel Comic Presents in the early '90s. So it's very likely we've read some of his works, like his own.
I did read a lot of Marvel Comics Presents in the early '90s, so probably did.
And Excalibur, Darkhold, and then Star Trek, Starfleet Academy. So he's done some stuff, and that's under his bibliography. So I mean, not only was he an editor, I guess he also had a pretty good amount of writing.
Yeah.
And
I'm looking him up right now on Amazing World of DC Comics, or Mike's Amazing World, or whatever that is. And the majority of his credits are Darkhold. It looks like he wrote the first 16 issues of Darkhold, and a very lengthy run of Vengeance backups in Marvel Comics Presents, and then, as you said, Starfleet Academy.
So the gay characters in Star Trek, I didn't read the Star Trek comics in this era. First male character Yoshi Mishima, and then the first openly lesbian character Victoria Montesi. That's really cool, and if anything, I'm grateful that he had this incident for many reasons, but one, so we know more and we can talk about his work, because how outstanding to go back and recognize him for his early 90s work on LGBT issues. That's fantastic.
Yeah. And since lately now he's working as an editor for a technical company now?
For a biomedical
biomedical,
I believe. I'm not. I want to put hand on Bible on that.
But he also does a lot of Audubon bird watching videos as well, because he's an avid bird watcher, which is what led to this confrontation with.
I never heard of the term birder before this happened.
I think I had, but in context of older folks who are more avid birders.
Okay.
Yeah, we actually birding is kind of a big thing around here because we live in a rural state where we're in several migration paths. So
got a lot of birding going on.
There's not much else to do in Arkansas. People just watch the birds leave.
It was,
and they're jealous.
I guess where I live, there's no birds, but there's boids.
Boids.
You're gonna go boiding. All right.
One pissed off pigeon.
All right. Want to transition over to the free talk? All right, let's do it. So again, as we said at the beginning of the show, and we'll just reiterate it here, ComiXology has a slew of free product right now. Some publishers, including Marvel and Dark Horse, were providing full graphic novel collections available for free. As we're coming out of May, there is a concern that when we hit June 1st, that some of this material might not be free. So if you are watching this now, take our advice. If you're listening to this on the Sunday when it's released, take our advice. Go and download it right now. Probably the biggest cache of product was the Scooby Doo's through DC.
Mm-hmm.
That probably was the most voluminous at over 250 free books.
Yeah. Well, and then also, just this past week, the time that we're doing this, I think Dark Horse make a lot of their number ones free, just recently through ComiXology and through their own Dark Horse app.
Yeah.
But a lot of Dark
that
Horse
was Image. The most recent influx of free number ones were Image. And also people Image, there's going to be no Image app after June 26th. And it's much easier to navigate on the Image app to get the free books than on ComiXology. So
get your free stuff first.
Thanks for
get it as soon as possible.
The Image apps, just go to free books and just pop all all right, Steve, you're always our good luck charm to start things off. So what is your recommendation for one of these types of books?
Well, my recommendation, unfortunately, was going to be Brian's recommendation. I didn't realize that until after I was like, "That's what I'm doing," and he's like, "Damn it." But hopefully he can jump in on this one. I picked The Seeds #1. It was a Dark Horse #1. And this one is by Ann Nocenti on words and David Aja on artwork and design. And of course, it's got the usual David Aja design, very interesting panels, lots of geometric shapes, lots of interesting compositions, and tons of detail. This book, the story, this book originally came out, the #1 came out in August of 2018. It was originally planned to be a 4-part series, and so this is the first one, about a somewhat not too distant future where the Earth is very much dying from a host of either natural disasters or man-made disasters, and there's a large section of the population, presumably in the United States, that's gone off and created a zone B, that is fully Luddite. There is no electronics, no internet, nothing electrical is allowed past the wall that's been set up between Zone A and Zone B. And in this world, there are a couple main characters that Nocenti brings out. One of them is Astra, and Astra is a journalist for the newspaper/web platform The Scoop. And she's looking for her next big story, which she believes is going to be on the other side of the wall. There's also a character named Lola, who is a disabled woman who is also, very sexually liberalized and, very, just a very interesting character, the way that she's made. And she has struck a relationship with a strange person that seems to be not altogether from this world.
He's mask for mask. Let's just say
he's definitely mask for mask. Because it turns out that the Earth has been visited and is currently has a bunch of members of an alien race that is there to collect seeds. Hence, part of the name, part of the reason for the name, The Seeds. Because in their opinion, the Earth is going to be completely dead and devoid of life, and so it's their job to go and collect as much biomatter and plant seeds and animal seeds as possible to take back with them to their boss. And Race is the alien character that Lola has struck up this relationship with. And all the while throughout this, because there's a lot of crosstalk, there's a lot of cross narration and lots of jumping around from Lola's story to Astra's story to Race's story. There's also some interesting interspersed dialogue that's happening between two characters named Jack and Susan, who we don't find out unless you read issue #2, which is available at a reduced price on ComiXology. It's only available for $1. Are farmers who live in Zone B. So they are very much living in the very natural world. They are bee farmers. They have pigs and chickens and goats, and are presumably going to be very important characters. The one thing I do have to warn you, though, if you do read issue number 1, and like it enough that you're going to get issue number 2, there is no issue number 3 or 4 yet. It has been since October 2018, when the original 3rd issue was solicited. It has been delayed almost 2 years. However, just last month, David Aja had posted on his Twitter feed that they are both completed. The only thing that they're waiting for is a way to get them published and distributed to people who need them. Most likely, this is put out by Berger Books. Most likely what they'll do is maybe do a completed, like a complete trade edition, as opposed to putting them out as single issues, or just do digital only. But if I had picked this up, and I was mentioning it to the other guys, if I'd picked this up in August or September of 2018 when it first came out, I would be pissed, because then I would have had 2 years to wait for anything. But now, if you read it, get it for free, read the second issue for $1, you probably will only have a couple months that you'll have to wait to complete the story, hopefully. Fingers crossed. It is fascinating. It is definitely worth it, in my opinion, to go to issue number 2. So hopefully you like issue number 1 enough. But if you don't, it's free. So that's my recommendation for ComiXology's free books.
I really agree with most of what you said, but I will only add that there was certainly a lot thrown at this one issue.
Yes.
And if anything, and I don't know with their process if they have an editor, but in this case, I feel like an editor might have streamlined it a little bit instead of trying to throw everything at the wall to see what sticks. Like, I like the world. I really am interested in the Luddite separated. That whole thing is fascinating. And that's honestly a lot to play with. It's kind of like Brian Wood's DMZ, right? A little bit. But they did have an editor.
Yeah, Karen Berger.
Oh, Karen Berger. So I am basically disagreeing with the fabulous Karen Berger.
One of the editors.
Yeah.
The editor, Karen Berger. But I agree. I agree that there is a lot.
And the alien thing is, the way they approach it is sort of different, and it's not like in your face until maybe the end of the first issue. But I don't know, man. Like, it's some of the best Ann Nocenti stuff I've read in a while. Like, I don't always.
I gotta say, with Nocenti, when she was involved in New 52, man, those books were rough. Catwoman, Katana.
Yeah.
She was on Green Arrow right before it course corrected with Jeff Lemire. Woo! Green Arrow especially. Woo! Those are some stinkers.
And when she writes her own stuff, I think overall she's stronger. But like, I don't know. There's like so much in this that I was really digging. And like, Steve, you nailed all of the things. The disabled, or like that her sex positive situation or whatever. Like, great stuff. Like, real good meat and potatoes comics stuff. That's not superheroes. And I loved all of that. The journalism angle, which Ann Nocenti is a journalist, so I mean, she's got a good insight into that world, right? But that alien thing, I'm just like, and aliens? Like
and aliens. And bees.
And bees. Yeah, and the bees thing, I'm like, and that's the other zone, right? That was the See, I haven't read the second issue, so it's like that whole thing.
And again, I'm sorry if I slammed her too much, because because on the other side of that, her work on Daredevil was fantastic. I mean, it was every bit as gritty and twisted as Miller's was. So I don't want to slam her across the board. It's just my last experience with her really left a really strange taste in my
mouth. Some of the New 52, I do agree, because I did read, especially Katana.
The book that
great
she's
ideas
done since then, Berger Books, the Ruby Falls, that's also been good, that she did with Flavia Biondi. That was fun. But I think you also have to remember with the Seeds, when it came out, this came out right in the early stages of the Trump presidency. And so things like journalism and things like taking care of nature and the wall separating these people who are disaffected by technology or rejecting technology and in rejecting science, like, there was just a lot. And that was kind of indicative of that era of, at least I would say non-big two comics, and not necessarily indie comics, but there was like artists were in full gear, man. They were just
Hmm.
spun up and going for it. There were several comics that I read that were miniseries that, be it 6 issues, felt like they should have been 8 issues, or a 4 issue series felt like it should have been 6 issues. And I think that was the case with this, but it really was because artists were just getting their feet wet in the Trumpian world, and they were going for everything. They were swinging for the fence,
Yeah.
and you can tell. I mean, like this is the fact that he's an alien. That's the metaphor is not lost there. Because I was somebody who did read this when it first came out, and yes, absolutely pissed that it's taking as long as it has, because the book is amazing, and I love David Aja. But and this is not even like, this work that he's doing here is even different than what he did in Hawkeye. I mean,
Hmm.
he's bringing a new flair here that, like, you can tell like, I think he was drawing mad. Like, sometimes you can tell when artists draw when they're deeply emotive. And
Yeah.
I really do feel like he was pissed. Like, I think he got up and watched Fox News for an hour every day before he started drawing, just to get himself pissed. And it shows, because it was working. And I cannot wait to get the last 2 issues. I got to go up to my bunker in the air to pull out those 2 issues and catch back up.
Yeah.
When you were talking about watching Fox News before, this is something I just found out about Jack Kirby. More
Hmm.
towards the late 60s and early 70s, he'd like to have some kind of distraction on, but nothing that he could get involved with. So he used to play like the Spanish news stations in Los Angeles and in New York, so that he had some audio going, but there wasn't anything he could get wrapped up in. I never
Hmm.
heard that before until today.
I,
Yeah.
that's cool. So like, if
Pretty
you're hearing something that to you is not making any impact whatsoever, but it's still noise,
Yeah.
that sounds like words. Um, no, that's cool. One thing that you mentioned, Caleb, and this is, I think, where Innocenti, like Brandon mentioned, her journalism background really ties into to her interpretation of the events and the environment that she was writing this. When Astra is going back to her boss at the Scoop, she has this conversation about some story that her editor wants her to write, and she just basically says it's bullshit. Like, this idea that you want me to write, it's just a garbage concept. Like, it's stupid. It's not real. And her boss basically says, it doesn't matter if it's not real. We'll write it and publish it, and then it will be real. Because fake
Yeah.
news is only fake until you make it real.
If you're
Um,
watching The Great right now, there's a great line about the first lie wins, and it's about
yeah.
Catherine's having sex with a horse. And
Hmm.
then one of the court who made the story up is like, the first lie wins, honey. And we see this now with fake news. People will
Yeah.
share random shit, and it gets out there, and it takes hold, and now people
Yeah.
believe it. It's, yeah.
And that's where her boss basically even says, where she tells a story about where, when she was a kid, the kids at high school called her a slut, even though she was this shy little, wallflower. And so she was like, well, guess what? Okay, if they call me a slut, I'll be a slut. And so it was a fake story, but it came true. I got slutty and liked it because, well, why not? They make you the thing, you might as well be the thing. And that's her philosophy there. And it's funny that Nocenti is really editorializing, the context that she was writing this originally. And this is back in, when she was writing, it was probably 2017 into 2018. So right at the start of the Trump presidency, and where fake news became a thing, pretty quickly, for anything that either you didn't want to believe, even though it was true, or something that was fake that actually became true. The fake news became the real news, and the real news became the fake news. And depending on which side of the aisle you came in on, that's which type of news you thought was which. But it's interesting. It's a really interesting book, and I do recommend it. So.
Okay. Since Caleb brought up some interesting points on that, I'll give him the mic. Caleb, what's your freebie that you want to talk about?
All right, so I picked up a book. I picked up a book. I grabbed a freebie. It's something I've been meaning to read for a while because I love the creative team, and actually, I went all the way through the free section, and I was pulling stuff left and right because I was like, oh, I didn't know this was on here. But I grabbed Vagrant Queen #1, uh, especially because this series is kind of in the popular conversation of the cultural zeitgeist right now because it's now a show. But it's written by Mags Visaggio. It is drawn by Jason Smith. Harry Saxton did some of the colors with Zach Son on the letters, and it's just a really fun sci-fi adventure. Mags, this was I forget, I don't even know what year this came out off the top of my head, but Mags was really just writing she wanted a character with a woman of color who was at the front. She wanted a really fun sci-fi space adventure, and that's essentially what she got. So the main character, Elita, I think is how you pronounce her name. I haven't seen the show yet, so I'm not sure how they're pronouncing it on there. She is this dethroned queen, and you don't really know that from the story unless you read a little the information packet with it. But in the story, you get her when she's older, and she's become kind of a bounty hunter. She's become kind of she's a Han Solo esque figure. She smuggles stuff for money, and she's arrived at this outpost. But she's very much arrived there having pissed off the wrong people, both on the good side of the law and the bad side of the law. So she's got everybody kind of gunning for her, but she's talented and she's skilled, and she's made a name for herself in the universe. And a lot of that has to do with the baggage that she carries with her of being this kind of unseated, dethroned, Anastasia esque type figure. She's the queen that got away, and she gets to this outpost. On the fringes where she sells her goods. She runs smuggles items for these people, and she's trying to make a deal. And of course, she's trying like the guy is trying to screw her over, trying to shortchange her, and she's not having it. And she just, she lays into him, kicks some ass, kills a guy, does what she needs to do to really establish herself in the narrative as a woman and a figure in this story that has earned her place. Like she's got the skill, she knows what she's doing. Um, and she gets her money, and so she goes to the. Of course, this is very Deep Space Nine-ish, where there is a bar, where there's going to be a Quark-esque bartender that knows everybody. And as she's sitting there, she's ordering a drink, and she's kind of glowing. She's happy. She's had a good day. And the bartender is kind of talking to her about it, and this figure walks up, and it's not somebody that she really, without ruining it if you haven't seen it, she's got a history with this person. She wasn't really looking to run into him, and typically when this guy comes around, bad things tend to follow. This is not somebody that she really wants to mess with. To so much to the point that very much tying into the idea of Star Wars, she has his ship. It's the ship that she flies around and she smuggles with is his old ship, and she has it because he shot her at one point. And you don't really get the full understanding of what that is in the first issue, but you just know that there's some animosity, and he wants his ship back, and he also wants to get back into a relationship, at least where he wants to be on her good side. And he does this in kind of a shady way. He's trying to get her to at least talk to him or acknowledge that he has he wants to work with her. He's got a job for her, and she's blowing him off. She doesn't care. She's not interested until he mentions that he knows where her mother is. Now, again, keep in mind that this is if she is the lost princess of the galaxy or whatever, what have you, then this would be the queen. And she doesn't believe him, but she's enticed just enough where she can't help but to speak to him, and she can't help but hear more. And as this happens, the space elite, the universal state troopers or whatever it is, they kind of roll in their giant spaceship and just lock the space station down. They shut off its communication. They close down everything. Nothing's getting in, nothing's getting out, and they pretty much they load themselves into the space station, and they're looking for her specifically. There's no bones about that. They're not hiding the ball. Mags is not at all. They're very much looking for her, so they have to make this very fun-filled, fast-paced, exciting escape. And and that's kind of where it leaves off. And so you've got multiple. You've got your protagonist, and you got your not so much an antagonist as much as a thorn in her side, going off on this space adventure to find this, global royal adventure that's going to find her way back to some sort of power on the globe. It's fun. It's very tropey. As I was reading this, you mentioned things like Deep Space Nine. You mentioned things like Star Wars. It's not pretending to be something that it's not trying to hide its influences at all. And I had a really good time with this, and so much so that I'm gonna have to go check out the series that's on television now. And I think this is the first thing that Mags had turned into something other than comics, if I'm not mistaken. So good on her. It's been fun watching Mag's career develop and blossom. And you go back and read books that she started on, like this or like Quantum Teens Go. She loves science fiction. She loves old school science fiction, and she really leans into it in a way that's just refreshing and kind of pure for that genre. So, absolutely $0 right now if you go check it out and download it. And I highly recommend it. Jason Smith's art also plays a big role into why I liked this. He and Harry Saxon both, they kind of have what I don't. It's hard to describe. I call it like an advanced kindergartner look to it, which is not an easy task. So things like their spaceship, the blast coming out of the spaceship, it's all very, very angular, and it's jagged. It's not. There's no round edges. They're not afraid of blocking their lines. In doing so, they really add a really fun, not juvenile, but a young tone to the book. It feels young. It feels something that you would enjoy being in the spirit of an all ages book without it actually being an all ages book, if that makes sense. And that completely comes through in the art. So kudos to them, for the whole team, for pulling off a great book.
Okay, and the publisher is Vault on that, I think, right?
Vault Comics.
Vault Comics, okay. Mm-hmm. Has anybody else sampled this? I haven't. I knew about the sci-fi series, and the only extended arc of hers I've read has been the Eternity Girl stuff,
which was great.
Yeah.
It's interesting you're describing the first issue of the book, because that's very similar to the first episode of the series. Probably, okay. It's probably the first episode of the series is probably like the first couple of issues of the comic. And that's the color palette they went to. They went with a very bright, everything is designed sort of, over the top, extra, which seems to fit in with the aesthetics of this book. And also just another weird little bit of trivia with the TV show. Mariko Tamaki is one of the writers and has written a couple episodes for it. So it's like everything kind of goes back to Mariko to me lately. Like I've been seeing her name pop up everywhere. I've read almost all of her books and Jillian's books at this point. So, but no, that sounds pretty cool. I'm gonna check it out for free.
All right, Brian, how about you?
So, as Steve mentioned, I originally was going to talk about the Fantastic Seeds, and I really enjoyed it. And then we discussed our selections, and yeah, the rest is history. No, it's fine. I mean, our tastes are similar, so of course. So I actually read a book that I had been meaning to get around to, but it has been a while since the previous volume. So I read the Umbrella Academy Hotel Oblivion. I've read the first two trades. I read them back when they came out in the aughts, I think. Is that when they came out? They were like in the mid-2000s. I've watched some of the Netflix series, but I didn't get very far for whatever reason. I think my life was insane at the time. But things started coming back to me reading this. It is the original team, Gerard Way and Gabriel Ba. So all of the characters that you know and love from the previous two trades are there. Though it does start with the Dr. Terminal character being ushered off by the monocle into the Hotel Oblivion. And the first issue just kind of sets him up that he's there, and you don't quite know what the situation is, like why or what the Hotel Oblivion is yet, but is the eponymous location of the series, so you'll find out more, I'm sure. And then it flashes forward to I guess the current state of the Umbrella Academy cast that we all know, and sort of picking up wherever they left off. And this is where, if you are new to the Umbrella Academy, let me just say, I don't know why you would pick this up first, but don't, because one of the maybe shortcomings, and this kind of feeds back to Nocenti a little bit, Wei likes to throw everything at you with very little context or clues. He does expect you to go back, figure it out, which you can, of course. It's not It's not unduly complicated, but they don't give you a nice quick, oh, by the way, here's what happened, or little editor notes, or in character, in dialogue, in whatever clues. So if you are, like I said, myself, you haven't read the Umbrella Academy in a while, it's a little bit of a, who is that? And what's this kid's deal? Why is he an assassin? Who is this giant bear-like creature who seems to be a man who looks disproportionate? Like it's all, again, as you talk through it, if you've seen the Umbrella Academy Netflix show or you've read any of the comics, it comes back. But what I will say is, from what I saw of it in the first issue alone, which is free, second issue, 99 cents, just like the other thing we're talking about with Seeds, it does propel you. The art is fantastic. Ba is great. It does seem a little like Ba's style has shifted over the years from the original look and feel of the Umbrella Academy, the first two trades. It does feel maybe like he's learning, he's trying different things. I would say it's a little sketchier, and maybe that's, I didn't check who the inker and the colorist were, but like it does seem like it's not devolving, but certainly getting a little looser in certain ways.
He's getting a lot more experimental,
which is good in a lot of cases, and it's not bad. Some of the art is fantastic. I'm looking at a page now where the monocle is basically leading Dr. Terminal into the hotel, and like it is very, I don't even know the right term for it there. It's like they're using color in a way that's very stark, but it conveys, and monochromatic, but they're conveying that electric otherworldliness to this entrance, and it's really cool. It's nice. Some of the stuff that takes place in Japan is very futuristic techno kind of Blade Runner or Ghost in the Shell like, but the color palette's also great. So I think of all things, actually, the colors really impressed me the most. And I'm going to look up the colors because I feel like that is a disservice to not mention them. But again, the art and the storytelling from Wei and Ba, if you enjoyed the previous Umbrella Academies and you're familiar with them, I think this is certainly worth picking up. It is all complete, unlike Seeds. They finished it, I think, mid last year. So you can actually pick up the trade, I think, for only $5.99. It was one of the ones that I saw that was on sale, and I was like, oh, shoot, I need to pick that up. I love the way they do the table of contents and the credits, because it's all a menu for the Hotel Oblivion, but it also makes figuring out who did what kind of complicated. Nick Filardi. So well known within the industry. Palette's pretty spectacular. I need to again go back and just reread the first two volumes, but I really appreciated this. Has anyone else read the whole run, and is it as solid as the first issue, or?
I really liked it. And Bill, you're on mute. Yeah.
You'll never know what pearls of wisdom are provided.
What brilliant you again.
I did not read the first issue of this until this became free. And some of that is because Apocalypse Suite in Dallas, I have in trade, and I was going to get this in trade, and I eventually will get this in trade, but I just haven't yet. So I've only read this, and I think there's also there's the first full issue, but then there's also a preview, which is like most of the issues. So there's two different free ones out there of Hotel Oblivion. But it actually was only like 3 weeks ago that I actually read this for the first time. I did read the what was it? The Cha-Cha and Hazel Christmas special. I did read that. Which was a lot of fun. That was a hell of a lot of fun.
Hotel Oblivion. I did read the entire thing in floppies as it was coming out. I really enjoyed it, but and I guess this might just be Gerard Way's writing style. There's a lot, you know. Obviously, there's no exposition that's thrown at you, but sometimes a little bit of exposition and a little bit of filling in the gaps can be very welcome. Even if you read every single issue, there's still some stuff that's left out that would be really important to kind of have filled in. The pacing is a little bit muddy in the middle, but I think the finale, the last two issues, were really great. The characters really shine through, and I think that's always been the case with Umbrella Academy. And the very little that we've really gotten with these characters in print form, I'm just hoping that there's not as much of a gap as there has been between Dallas and Hotel Oblivion.
I can't wait to see if they actually use this for the Netflix series, because they're doing the second season. It's already been shot. It's coming out soon.
Yeah.
I would be surprised to see a lot of this come through in the Netflix show, because it's so much. I think more than even Dallas and Apocalypse Suite. Just goes off in directions.
There's a time gap that happens that's not really explained. And
so Brian, you haven't watched the full Netflix series?
I have not. No. So okay. Am I way off on that? Because the first, I think I watched the first 2 or 3, and I was like, oh yeah, I like this. I remember loving the characters, and I just, again, my life moved on. But I'm gonna go back and watch it certainly now.
Yeah.
But do you think that this season, or this from what you've read, fits within what they would do with the Netflix show, or is it?
I think we've got a ways to go before
we've got
they
a ways to go there before they get to.
Oh, okay. So that's the thing. The first season isn't even the full first volume.
It is, and
it's the other elements that come into it.
Got it.
Yeah. But still watch it.
Oh no!
And before the new season comes out, watch it.
Yeah, no, it's for sure on my list. But no, if again we're talking about free issues, these are things you can get now, and it might spur you on to go get the trade. And I think for that reason alone, I mean, that they're giving this stuff away is so worthwhile to just pick it up, read it, and then come back later. And you can always revisit it and decide if you want to get the trade. So. Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm very happy to report on this show that Steve talked about a Berger book, which was a Dark Horse imprint, and Caleb talked about a Vault book, and Brian, you talked about a Dark Horse book. And I know I tend to be the DC guy, but I didn't go for a DC book.
Ooh.
For my freebie. I went, and the physical copy here, actually a variant cover of the physical copy of Huck #1. That was written by Mark Millar and drawn by Raphael Albuquerque. It came out in late 2015, completed in 2016. I did read the first 2 issues when it came out, but then it went to the back of the pile like so much. If you follow me, you know that I'm, getting through this backlog, and I've read a lot of Millar over the last few days. I went through all of the Magic Order and Reborn and Huck and sprinklings of some other books I wasn't going to continue with. And the main conceit of Huck. Also, you'll notice here that this is a very Field of Dreams inspired cover. For each of the 6 issues of Huck, there were variant covers that paid tribute to films of the late 80s and early 90s, not even late 80s, 80s. So there's a Ghostbusters and an E.T. and the last issue is there's a counterpart for Forrest Gump, and that's very appropriate because Huck is effectively Forrest Gump with superpowers. Not mentally challenged, but simple. Let's put it that way. Mensa was not going to be recruiting him anytime soon. He works as a mechanic in a town, and for some reason when I originally read it, I thought it was in the South. It's actually in Maine where this takes place, but you have to really peel to find there's the newspaper. Okay. So for some reason, I thought it was either Midwestern or in the Southeast, but it actually takes place in Maine, where this individual Huck, there's some mystery regarding his actual parentage. He was brought up by an adoptive family, and again, he has these superpowers, which are super strength, speed, and tracking. They're not necessarily truly defined, but you don't care because that's just secondary to the story. Um, he's a good person. He tries to perform 4 good acts every day, and writes down and makes choices about which ones to do, and some he might like get to tomorrow. It's There's a real charm to him, um, and as the story goes on, again, I want to restrict this to what happens in the first issue, because what is a very American story in the first issue eventually becomes international. But just keep in mind, we start from a very American perspective of this small town individual becomes a small town hero who then gets the spotlight that's much bigger than that because of loose lips, for lack of a better word. Um, there's so much charm in this book. Um, and not just because of the central character that anchors it, but the world that again, I've always said some of the best American stories are written by British people, because they just have you know yeah, I think we all have some idealized version of America, but we're here. They have an idealized version of America, but don't grow up in that atmosphere. So in some ways, it's much more magical, I think. And I think he definitely hit on that. Um, and uh, it's really nice for somebody who is as divisive sometimes in his writing, uh, that there's this just oasis of sweetness. That's just what I'm going to call it. Even as the story progresses through the 6 issues, and as much darker as the story on as it unfolds, there's much more darker elements. There's still this light that shines through, and it's one of those books where I'm kicking myself. Why did I bail on this issue too? Really, really like that. And again, it's from Image, and it's free. And also, Raphael Albuquerque's art. I mean, no one does a plane like he does.
Mm-hmm.
If you've ever, there's certain, and that's without being like a tech head. I mean, look at that beauty there. Look at that.
Mm.
I'm sure I'm like the majority of people, that the first time I had exposure to him was Blue Beetle, and this is a radically different style that he's employing here. Um, and also, like, I also have to go back to the colorist here, Dave McCaig. There's so much importance provided to the palette of and again, as I said, becomes an international story, and the choices that are made between the two elements they're just stunning. So that's my freebie recommendation, Huck #1.
Well, if I can jump in here with you, this was one of my favorite things that Millar wrote for a long time, for the past couple of years, and I absolutely adored it. And Albuquerque pulls almost some Tim Sale type tricks in this
Mhm.
book with people's
That's fair, yeah.
visage,
Mhm.
which is interesting because it really pairs well with what you're talking about. This idea of Americana, he's using very Steinbeckian tropes in this book. Like there's some of Mice and Men in this book,
Yeah.
that he pulls through all throughout the story, and it's kind of this American, and I think that also is why a lot of people read it, myself included. I had no idea it was in Maine, but they feel like it's set in the South
Mhm.
because it does have this Steinbeck of Mice and Men feel to it, that you can almost feel the South in it, and everything feels like it's just kind of a decade behind where it should be.
Yeah.
To give it kind of this Puritan, like not puritanical, but purist ideology. And
Mhm.
it was, for me, the last issue I don't think served the entire arc justice, and I was hoping it was going to go somewhere that it didn't. But you kind of, you can't really judge a book based on what you want it to
Mhm.
do. You have to judge it based on what it is. But it was like I said, one of my favorite things that he did, and mainly because it's pulling from those. It was one of the most literary things that I've ever read that he's done.
Mhm.
Well, I think both of you said it really well. I mean, Millard tackles the character of Huck, and even though some of the actions of some of the other characters runs very counter to the feel, especially in this first issue, but he gives Huck a lot of innocence, and he tackles the character and even the story itself. Even though when the story kind of goes where it goes, he doesn't. And I guess this kind of fits into sort of like an idealized American version, or maybe an idealized version of an 80s American hero film. That there's a lack of cynicism.
Mhm.
That there's, and I think in that it's that innocence mixed with the lack of irony in this that kind of really gives it a very interesting feel. Like, this is the kind of story that you would have gone to see in the movie theaters in 1985, maybe in 1984, as a 12-year-old kid or a 10-year-old kid, and like this would have been your favorite movie. But yeah, no,
All
I agree.
right.
Like it.
So I think we got 4 really good choices for people.
Mhm.
And like I said, I get worried because I've had the worst luck with this show of saying something is available and then it's not. The worst was that Aquaman documentary that was on DC Universe. Oh, it's on there. Go and like literally the next morning they took it off and never put it back on.
No.
I don't know. Oh, the other one that happened with me was with the Captain Marvel, the old Captain Marvel public domain books.
Oh, right, yeah.
And then all these sites got court orders about and
It's because you said
about
something, Bill.
I know it's me. So
Loose lips.
what can I say? Like, let's say like, Trump got reelected, and then it's not going to happen. Let me say that then. Okay.
Don't tempt
Be
that
careful, he's
fate.
going to issue an executive order.
Oh yeah. I'm sorry, that was said sarcastically, so therefore we're shutting you down.
Let's not poison the well. All right. Okay. All right. Well, we're looking at a little closer to 11 o'clock than we were before. So that's East Coast time. So it's time we start wrapping this show up. And when we wrap an episode of the Comic Book Bears podcast up, we do so with a segment we call the Woofs of the Week segment. In the bear community, when you woof at a fella, it means you find them attractive. And we're basically indicating something that we find attractive. It might be a comic book, might be a film, might be a TV show, might be a charitable initiative. It might be anything under the sun that we think you, fair listener, may be interested in sampling. We'll just continue with the order that we provided during the show. So I'll start with you, Steve. What is your woof of the week?
Well, thankfully I got my HBO Max subscription working today, so I got to watch the show. And it is, for those of you who know, that I'm a big fan of RuPaul's Drag Race. And this is not Drag Race, but this is something that has inspired Drag Race. And if you are a fan of Pose, the Ryan Murphy show, then you'll also hopefully enjoy this as well. It's a new HBO Max competition series called Legendary. That is all about the ball scene. So basically 8 houses or 8 teams compete in the show. They provide a runway, walk, look, vogue, etc. They present themselves in whatever way they want. And provide and put on a routine, and then it's judged similarly to the way a true ball would be judged. The judges in this case are Jamila Jamil, everybody's favorite British socialite from The Good Place. She's the unexperienced, like the inexperienced person on the panel. So she's the one who's just pure audience, does not know the technical aspects of anything, but is there to really just give sort of the normal person's response. You've got Law Roach for fashions. You've got Leomi Maldonado, who has decades experience in the ball scene, and Megan the Stallion, who's just a crazy person. She's a rapper and just has an over-the-top way of presenting herself. So she's perfect on this panel. It is a free-for-all. It is very interesting, a lot of fun. Right now you can watch the first 2 episodes, and it's going to be coming out weekly. So if you're interested in the ball scene, if you like Pose, if you like Drag Race, and want to kind of see what that's all about in a real-ish, a competition show, watch Legendary on HBO Max.
Okay, throwing it over to Caleb. Caleb, what is your wolf of the week?
So I kind of have a semi. I don't know if there's such a thing as a sad wolf, or it doesn't have to be. It can be a celebratory wolf. But the great Larry Kramer passed away this week, at the age of 84, and he, as somebody who was an activist and interested, and a theater guy like I know Bill is. When I saw that he died, my heart kind of sunk a little bit, but it really made me go back and just appreciate all the work that he did and all of what he gave us, and especially for my generation. So I'm 32. For those who don't know me, I missed a lot of the AIDS crisis. I wasn't cognizant of that as a kid, and I missed a lot of what he did for our community. And I think a lot of people my age take that for granted. I know HIV is still a very serious issue, and I don't mean to make light of that, but it's nowhere near what it used to be, obviously. And part of that is because of the work that Larry Kramer did. A few years ago, his play The Normal Heart came out and was turned into I think an HBO miniseries or maxi series, what have you. It was a beautiful story. It was beautifully done. And so my wolf goes out to his life, and to the celebration of everything that he left us and his legacy. And I think that's worth, if there's an LGBTQ Hall of Fame, he's got to be in it for us, for what the work that he's done. So that goes out to Larry Kramer, a divisive figure in his time, not somebody he was easily to get along with, as well, but not without his merits.
I have to interject here because, as somebody who did, Jesus Christ, I was 17 in 1985, like I'm right in that AIDS era lifestyle, and worked in New York theater for a part of the 90s. I saw him treat people abominably.
Did you?
And I think The Normal Heart, sadly so, yes. And I think the Normal Heart is a fantastic work. I think ACT UP was necessary, but I do feel in this instance that people who may, I'll never take away what he accomplished. And Fauci said it, the best, in saying that there's healthcare before Larry Kramer and healthcare after. That's a pretty big statement, and I think it is true.
Yeah.
But whether it's Prince or some other people, because of my exposure to something, I think this is one of those instances where it's okay to respect the work and not necessarily respect the person. So,
yeah. Well,
if I did not bear witness to that on 2 occasions, I probably would feel differently. But
for sure,
I think he could have been a nicer person to certain people.
I'm a gay kid who lives in Arkansas, so I'm completely separated. Like, I get the sanitized version of his legacy, which I think is true with a lot of celebrity. So I can see that, and I like that. That sucks. that sucks to hear, but it's believable from what I have heard about him, and the way he is known to have spoken to people and everything. But still, like you said, ACT UP and the work that he gave us is gonna sit in my heart forever.
Yeah.
So
there's more people alive because of him, and let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
Okay, Brian, how about you? What is your wolf of the week?
So I want to give this moment, this wolf, a shout out to my ex partner Pat O'Rourke, who is carrying on his legacy of Bears in the City, just having the 8th anniversary of his organization, his business, this past Saturday as of a recording. And specifically, I want to point out the thing he is transitioning to now that he is not in Orlando doing the bar events. He is doing this really cool small business spotlight Facebook and YouTube interview series with queer not just Chicago based, but all over the place, queer business people. And I say he says business, but really it's writers, musicians. It's anyone who is trying to make a name for themselves and put their own product out there in the world. David Collins, who is an author who did Gay Bash and Summerdale, who is also a Chicago native or Chicago resident. He interviewed him last week, and it was a great interview. And then a most recent one, he did a musician, and the name just completely disappeared from my head. So as I talk about this, I'm going to remind myself. But if you are interested in finding these interview series, go on to Facebook or YouTube and look up The Bears in the City. You'll know you'll find the right one because there's a martini glass with an olive and a little bear face. It is his most recent one today actually was Adam Noreen, who is a independent musician. So if you're interested in helping share queer businesses, business owners, artists, creators work, and you're interested in interview in the process and finding out what they do, these small business spotlights are really good for that. Again, they're Facebook, YouTube, The Bears in the City. Check them out and let us know if you like what you see, and if you are a small business owner, of course, or a creator, we always are looking for you to come on our show. But feel free to let us know that you're out there, and let Pat know as well, so we can get the word out for you.
Okay, thanks. It's good to see that he's continuing that. My Wolf of the Week goes out to, I feel like, Steve, a television series. It just wrapped up on Hulu, and the series I'm talking about is Mrs. America. This is an American drama created by Davi Waller, very much an American story, Mrs. America. And it tells the tale of Phyllis Schlafly and her very, very right-wing efforts to get to kill the Equal Rights Amendment. The cast is unbelievable. Kate Blanchett, Rose Byrne, Elizabeth Banks, Margot Martindale, Tracy Ullman, Sarah Paulson. Just an amazing cast. Basically takes you through the 70s, pretty much. We wrap up at just as Reagan is elected in November of 1979, and we see the development of certain women against the backdrop of the women's movement. All of the main actors have their moment in the sun, for lack of a better word. Again, when you do get material like this, of course, there's elements that are going to be highly fictionalized. There's composite characters, and the relationships. The more you read about it, the more you find out. There's a lot of fiction in the interactions, but just in terms of a very well done series, and sadly a story that still needs to be told because of gender inequality that still exists in this country and naturally in other places around the world. Davi Waller, this really is her first big bite at the apple. She'd been a writer for Eli Roth and Mad Men and Desperate Housewives. The series airs on Hulu. It's 9 episodes long. They just released the finale last night, and you can see the whole thing right now. Binge it away. One thing I really love about the way television has transmuted is the episodes take as long as they need to take now. We have that. We have that. I just think, if there are some series where it's like, 46 minutes of content, sometimes there's so much filler, and then other times they're crushing stuff in. And in terms of the new television landscape, that's one development I'm really happy to see in place and continuing. And if anybody can identify the instrumental that's played at the end of the last episode, please let me know, because Shazam let me down. I don't know what this is. I'm loving it. Hopefully it hasn't hit like what was played on that, whatever that website hasn't hit yet. It's too new.
I'm looking. Oh, hold on. There is another option I can look at.
But there also was a song towards the end that was played. I never knew this. If anybody knows the folk singer Nick Drake, his mother had released like recordings in the 1950s, and these are really creepy and wonderful and magical. So they use that, and then so like the theme for the song is a fifth of Beethoven. You know, it's very 70s. Some of the stuff you hit, but that was my that was one of the series I've been enjoying since we've been in shutdown. So
Was it an instrumental? It's because Chris Bowers had just put out an album with the entire soundtrack.
I'll have to take a look. And
Yeah.
do you mean just like in like since like yesterday?
Like just now, yeah.
Okay. All right. Good to know. I try to stay on top of these things. And there's also, I just want to thank the other three gentlemen that I've been on the call with for the last hour and a half. Last Friday, something snapped with me, and I just haven't been the same. Been very depressed. I think, you know, for anybody who's been enduring seems to be a very strong word, but who has been contending with the shutdown, I think, you know, even the people with the most fortitude, you know, even them, you know, things will get to you after a point. And I think I hit my point, and this has been, I'm viewing this as one of the steps that's coming back from that. And I really appreciate you guys. So thank you for providing this evening. Love it. Okay, we are the Comic Book Bears podcast. Back to commerce, people. Back to commerce. Selling it. Again, we are the Comic Book Bears podcast. You can find us on the Facebook as Comic Book Bears podcast. You can find us on the Twitter and the Tumblr and the Instagram as Comic Book Bears. Soon to be Comic Book Bears podcast also on those sites, though, and I'll tell these gentlemen about that. You can find us on where? iTunes. You can download us through there. Please leave a review. You can download us through Stitcher Radio as well and some other podcatching platforms. And if you want to write to us, please do so by sending an email to comicbookbears@gmail.com. Until next time, I'm Bill Zanowitz.
I'm Brian Pittard.
I'm Steve Morey.
I'm Caleb Alexander McKenzie.
On the audio version, you're going to hear Wolf and an Explosion. We'll be